question of fear. And I'm going to add it's a question of faith. I see fear and faith on the same spectrum as far as it's one side or the other side. And we all have heard the acronym that fear is false evidence appearing real. Or you could say that it's face it and rise, right? Face it and rise. So I'm gonna focus more on faith, and for those of you that were in the Wealthy Mind class, you're gonna hear some of the same things that you heard in there. It's how do we know? When do we know to turn to the absolute truth? I mean, all of us, I think all of us on this call know the 23rd Psalm, right? And there's a line in there that goes it's really interesting. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou is with me. Okay. So fear in the valley of death could be some of the same things, like what Gibran, we read in Gibran. It's all of a sudden there's change. The river's flowing downhill. It's got a pretty, if you think about it, when it talks about coming from the mountain, it's flowing downhill. It's just kind of cruising along. It's going down the river, and then all of a sudden it comes to the vastness of the ocean, the vastness of God, right? It's the vastness of the ocean, and it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. Now it's been free floating all the way down the hill. You know, it came from the sky, probably it's snow. It transmuted, transformed, but where are we with that as we face some of the fears? Like, and the Wealthy Mind, we jokingly with some of you, I've called it, we did belief busters. You know, who are you gonna call? Belief busters. And I think every one of you that was in the class and we went through the 4 steps, as you stood and you named your limiting belief, which if you think about what we just read with the river, the limiting belief was, oh my God, I can't go into the ocean. I'm not enough. If you really look at it, I'm not enough. I want to go back and I want to hide. But once you stated your limiting belief in Wealthy Mind, which is, you know, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. And then you looked at what the positive intention was. The positive intention of the river flowing into the ocean was that part of that law of circulation, so that it could return to God. It could return to the essence of the vastness, and then it could recycle and come back down. Okay. So it's, you know, it's kind of like the saying that we've heard about, within one drop of the ocean, not the river, but within one drop of the ocean is the ocean. So each of us, within each of us is the essence of God, the essence of the universe, whatever word you choose to use, that you are a part of that. You're not the all of it, like the river's not the all of the ocean. But we have a fear of different. And we see that in the world right now. We're facing the fears of owning who we are. I loved when Amber talked about the boxes that we've been put into. And I'll be honest, when you first mentioned box, my first thought was, look at us now. We're in boxes. We're in Zoom boxes, which is something that we didn't do in January. We didn't do it in February. But we can see the limitations of our boxes, yet at the same time, we're still a community. So the fear is the unknown. The fear is what's next. The fear is, do we believe the news? Do we look to the absolute? Remember how I think it was 2 weeks ago when I talked about, do we look down and say, I'm excited, and there's no excitement in our body? Do we look straight ahead and we go, oh, I'm excited, and we play in the intellect? Or do we look up to look at what's possible? And that's what the beauty of the river is. There's a really interesting exercise that Reverend Marcia Sutton and Reverend Lloyd Strom put together. It's called the Fear to Faith exercise. And you may have gone through that as you began your ministerial search in clarity. And Bobby's shaking her head yes. And Bobby, I don't know if you did that as a board, if you did that as the selection committee, or if you did it as the entire community. But I would invite all of you to, and I'll forward over to you, Bobby, their exercise called the Sacred Service, and it's in there, and it's actually Denise or Amber or Reverend Robert, maybe that you guys want to do it as a group project type situation. But the Fear to Faith, you can send it to everybody if they want it, so that they can see the guidelines. But I'll forward it over to you. But it's really an exercise. What am I fearing? And it's really taking the cross and going from as above, so below. Okay, as above, so below is me. This, I get to say it's heaven on earth right here in my presence. And do I choose to live in fear, or do I choose to live in faith? I think one of the beautiful teachings of our community called Centers for Spiritual Living is the fact that we can turn, as Emma Curtis Hopkins said, turn resolutely away from that we do not want and focus on the absolute. And can we bring ourselves back to center? How fast can we bring ourselves back to center? Are we going to get caught up in the worldly events? Because the truth is, we have to be in the world, but we don't have to be of the world. And most of the people that I know that are part of CSL communities have not had this thing called COVID. Do I think COVID came along to teach us something? Absolutely. Do I think the planetaries are aligning right now that it's kind of some interesting stuff? But is the world as we know it changing? Absolutely. It changes every day. Example is, I don't know what time each of you woke up this morning. I am not the person that got out of bed at 6:30 this morning. Nor are you. And the truth is, that really is, from a biblical perspective, that really is the book of Revelations in motion. Okay. So in Wealthy Mind, in the Fear to Faith workshop, they talk about the simplicity. How can we get to the simplicity of knowing who we are? Like when you drive up, I remember one of my friends who's a minister now, but she used to always tailgate. She was like, we used to joke, and pardon my language, we used to joke that she sucked the gas pipes in the car in front of her. And then every time somebody would cut her off, she'd get mad. And so we started this practice that we would, like, I'll tell you what, when I was in the car and I was her passenger, I was holding on for dear life. Okay. I mean, it was just like, I found myself braking, and I know some of you do that when you ride with people too. But we actually got to the point that we started saying, like, if somebody cut her off, we'd start saying, the God in me sees the God in you. And she would, in the beginning, she would still be a little angry. And this was years ago, so life has changed. But she used to say, God in me sees the God in you, asshole. Because she just had to get it out of her system. Okay. And again, I apologize if I say something that offends, because that's not my purpose. But when you start getting into the habit of saying, the God in me sees the God in you, it starts changing your perspective. The fear I have is I'm turning to faith. And I know that God goes before me and clears the way. The angels go before me and clears the way, my way. My prayers in the morning go before me and clear my way. And it's just a matter of moving out of that fear and taking the walk of faith. And, Ernest Holmes said something about faith is a mental attitude. Fear is a mental attitude too. Do you choose to live in fear, or do you choose to walk in faith? Do you choose? And trust me, I'm telling you, I'm not perfect at this myself. Every day is, how can I get back to my center? How can I get back to my center? And as some of you know, June 21st, I became unemployed. And all my friends are saying you have to find a job. No, I don't. No, I don't. I need to get clarity with me for what I want. And it's kind of funny because all of a sudden Friday, you know, you go through the process that you have to apply every week for things, and all of a sudden Friday, somebody returned my call. They go, "You qualify. We want to interview you for the city of San Jose." So then I had to say, okay, because I had no attachment when I applied. I know that I don't want to go to work until the October timeframe. Okay, so I'm applying in faith with no attachment. And it's no different than when you guys looked for your minister, your new minister. You moved to a place that you had no attachment. And you moved to a place that you knew that the right candidate would show up. You moved to a place that you all had an opportunity to be and hear the new candidate, who the candidates were. And then you moved to a place that you got to vote for. But you were moving forward, you weren't frozen in time. And Bobby, I'm going to pick on you just a little bit. I remember in June when I said, would you like me to schedule out the next the fourth Sunday through September? And you had told me that you guys were contemplating maybe not doing any candidating, but home office told you you needed to move forward. Thank God they gave you that little push, you know, because how long has it been that you haven't had a quote unquote senior minister? It's been a couple of years, right? 1 year? Okay. You know, and so you're blessed that it was only a year, because I know some churches that by design, even though they won't admit it, they just moved to just having guest speakers. And this was years ago. Like when I was in ministerial school, there was a church that for 7 years didn't have a minister. They would have ministerial students come in and talk. Because and basically what it was there was a practitioner running the church, which is not what home office likes, which is not what a community needs. A community needs somebody that can support them and help them move through whatever fears might be going on, that give consistency to what's happening. And that's an act of faith what you guys just did. It's a great act of faith, and I know that you are well pleased and will continue to be well pleased. Yesterday, if you have the Science of the Mind 365, which I know is something that Denise uses at times for the Sunday meditations, yesterday's quote was, "Today I put on the armor of faith. I wrap myself in divine protection." Do each of you know what your armor of faith is? Because my armor of faith is going to be a little different than yours. My armor of faith starts before I put it on, before I even get out of bed. And it basically goes like this. Okay, Papa, what are we going to do today that's fun? So I'm turning it over to the divine. You know, and some people get upset because I use the phrase Papa for my God. But I also use God, I use Great Spirit. It depends on the time and the place. And, you know, we know that there's at least 72 names for God found in the Bible. So the question is, what's your one-on-one relationship with that's greater than you, that you're a part of, that becomes your armor of the divine? So when you walk through the valley of death, you can fear no evil, for thine is with me. And you know, sometimes we look back at the traditions we were raised with, and we try to I'm turning away from that. But those are some good roots that we were all given. How we interpret them, we get to change, because there's, what is it, Englehart, that says, I go back to the same places where I read the books with new eyes, because from the time I read them before to what I experienced to the time I read it again, I get different ahas. That's what the beauty of in years gone by, that's what the beauty of our teaching has been in regards to doing the first 4 chapters in the month of January of the Science of Mind text. Because I know that I think I'm speaking probably for 95% of us, and you can raise your hand. How many of you first read the Science of Mind and said, what is he talking about? What is this language? And now I can go back and I can say, oh, this is when he was reading Emerson, he wrote this chapter. Oh, this is when he was into Trower and he wrote this chapter, because you can see it and how it's presented. Yet the first time you read it, you kind of go, what the heck? I want somebody to talk to me about this versus me interpreting it. And that's the same thing with fear. What the heck? What am I looking at here? And the minute I'm saying to myself, what the heck, is the minute that I want to return to, what do I know? Can I look at this in the awe of a child, in curiosity? Or am I going to look at it as a frightened child? I want to be the awe of a child in curiosity. And I'm purposely, I know when I've talked in the Monterey Center, it's about how fast I get back to center. How fast do I get back aligned, as in heaven, so below? How fast can I return to what I know to be true? How fast can I return to my authentic self? Does my authentic self know fear? No. How fast, in light of all the stuff that's going on in the world today, trust me, I don't like sheltering in grace. Today's my friend's birthday. I'm going to go celebrate my friend's birthday. Is there going to be a lot of us? No. It's probably going to be 3. And are we going to keep our safety? Of course. But I'm not going to miss out on events of life. Even if I'm doing a call like this with my family, I'm not going to miss out on the special events. I'm going to find a different way to do it. It's kind of like that river coming to the ocean saying, wow, look at it, how big it is. Where do I play in this game? When I was in some of my classes, they use a lot of $50 words. We use a lot of $50 words. And believe it or not, I have a fear. I have a fear that I can't enunciate the $50 word. Omniscient. See, I can't say it now, I mean, because it's from childhood. So instead, I don't use the $50 words. But on one of the words, I just couldn't grasp what it was. And the word was opulence. I have an opulence of faith. And one of my friends said it to me this way: Kathleen, you're a beach person. So imagine you go to the beach, which is perfect in the Gabron, the river comes to the ocean. So I'm standing on the beach. And before me, I see an opulence of sand. For miles and miles, you see sand. And I reach down and I take a handful of sand. And in my lifetime, the grains of sand in my hand is an opulence that will keep me forever. Think of this grain of sand as money. Think of it as abundance in life. Think of it as whatever you want. But all of your needs are in that handful of sand. And yet, I did not deplete the beach by taking that handful of sand and living and holding it up. That's what we have access to with our faith. We have access to the opulence of that which is greater than us, and yet we get to become a part of it. And we don't deplete it. We experience it. We enhance it. So the question becomes, how do you move? How do you purposely, intently take the action to say, oh, fear, I see you, and turn this way. Fear, I feel you, but I'm going to move through it and move forward. And that's really what we're being called to do right now in the United States and in the world. We're being called to be our brother's keeper. We're being called to have dominion, like we were told, like the book of Genesis says we have. We've never understood dominion. Dominion is that we care for one another as we care for ourselves. We we care and we support each other. We don't put somebody down because they're different than us or they're in a box that we're not in. And look, right now, if you have it on gallery view, look at all of us in our boxes. Collectively, we're the all of God. Individually, we're the awe of our God presence. But what is there to fear here when we look at everybody? We all bring different talents. We need to honor those. So my theme for the month is really standing in the face of faith, not facing the fear, standing in the face of faith. So I'm going to look at a couple of other things to make sure I captured the important things. Bob Proctor, who's a teacher of our times, said this, and we kind of talked about it as I talked about the spectrum of fear and faith. Faith and fear both demand that you believe in something you cannot see. You get to choose if you live in fear or if you walk in faith. And that's pretty powerful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the prayer that's in the Fear to Faith walk, that's in the Sacred Days text that I'm going to do that. I'm going to close with that. And as I read it, I want you to think, when I say I want you to think about the I in you. And when I say I want you to think about the world leaders. When I say I want you to think about the community leaders. When I say I want you to think of the world and the people that are in it. So if you would just take a deep breath, and it's called the Fear to Faith Easy Prayer. And we forget sometimes how simple our prayers could be, and yet how powerful they can be. It begins, there is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. I know that I am one with this great and wondrous life. Therefore, I know that I am one with all that this life is. And because I know that this life is a source of infinite love, joy, and laughter, free of fear, full of faith, I therefore know that these divine and sacred qualities are also an expression of my very own being as spirit. So here and now, I declare my intention to express this word of God into my own experience of life in order to affirm I am God's beloved child with whom he or she is well pleased. Every step I take in faith. Additionally, I am willing to fully release my belief in fear, as I also release whatever needs that I may have to buy into the words of fear and false appearances. As I accept this good in my life, I give thanks with a gracious, faithful, and loving heart. I know that as I release these sacred words into the creative process of life itself, then so indeed do I know that they shall be revealed as my experience in the world. I am grateful of God. I am grateful God is gracious. So be it now. Amen. And I'm going to reread what Gibran wrote because I want you to really grasp and think of this. In regards to fear, it is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles. She looks back at the path she has traveled From the peaks of the mountain, the long and winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so fast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know. It's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. Become the ocean. Thank you.